This is a new series started last week. A number of people were able to learn about this important issue of responding to atheists, the faith, the fight, and the future. And why the topic? The faith, what we believe. The fight, to ensure that we hold on to what we believe, to be able to preserve the future of younger generation. Now, if we do not answer some very important question that is being asked us right now, we might just have Christianity go into oblivion as we go into the future. Because young people are asking very important and critical questions that many are unable to answer. So the faith, what we believe, the fight to answer the question being asked in order to preserve the future of our faith, so that when we are gone, people behind, we thank God that we were here to give them show them what they need to know to be able to confront what they are going to face in school, in the mall, online, and in different areas of their life. The essence of this series, by the way, is to help young people who are doubting their faith, their Christian faith, who are looking stupid for believing in God and in the Bible, and who have been sold bad version of Christianity, to begin to see the Christian faith not as a religion, but rather not as a religion, but rather as a way of life. So it's to help them to begin to see the Christian faith not as a religion, but as a way of life, as a way to live. It's a type of life that helps us become more productive and meaningful on the earth. But the version that has been sold to many is the version that made them to be less productive, hanging everything in their life on God for God to come and fix while they fold their hands. That's the essence of this session we've been having since last week. So today I'll be answering some questions. You know, last week, one of the major questions I answered last week is, Christianity is white man religion. If you were here last week, you will have seen the answer that is not true. You will have learned that Christianity came into Africa before white man brought Christianity to Africa. You will have learned that Christianity was not brought into Africa by white man. Christianity was already in Africa before white man came. They just came and expanded it because they had education. They were able to teach people more. But it was already existing in Africa ever before. So that we can stop that wrong notion that make us to think that, oh, Christianity is white man religion. It's their own religion. We have our own religion. So let's do our own while they do their own. That's not true. We established that last week. Today, I have a lot of questions I would like to answer. One of the questions is, who is God? Have you ever thought of that question? Who is God? Who is God? God is a spirit. And God is a spirit which takes us out of the limitation of man. Remember, man is a matter. And this makes man to be unqualified to properly define God. God is a spirit. Man is a matter. So we cannot fully define him because we are matter. We are limited. The fact that you cannot put a spirit in a lab and conduct experiment does not mean that the spirit does not exist. Does not mean that the spirit does not exist. Imagine an ant trying to define human being. An ant saying human being does not exist. There's nothing like human being. Imagine an ant trying to define human. That would be impossible because The ant is too tiny to comprehend human. So also, man is too tiny to comprehend God. Man is too limited and is limited to his 5 senses. The eyes is limited to what he can see with his eyes. It's limited to what he can feel in terms of touch. It's limited to what he can hear with his ears. It's limited to what he can say, feel with his tongue. Man is limited to his 5 senses. The tongue, the eye, the ear, the nose, and the skin. Is limited to what these 5 sense organ can do. Man is limited. God is unlimited. Man is limited to his 5 senses and is limited to the thing he can see and hear. Man that only rely on his senses to judge reality cannot determine the existence of a spiritual God. It is easier to defeat an atheist about God's existence because that position contradicts the Newton's law of motion. So if atheist says that God does not exist, that position is self-contradictory, unless the atheist does not believe in science. If an atheist believes in science, and the atheist is saying he doesn't believe in God, that is self-defeating, that is self-contradictory. Particularly, it contradicts the Newton's first law of motion. The Newton's first law of motion says that everything will continue in the state of rest or a uniform motion on a straight line unless compelled by an external force to act otherwise. So if you put something here now, it's supposed to remain here for the next 5-10 years. If nothing touches it. But if an external force touches it, it's going to move the position. Everything remains in the state of rest or a uniform motion on a straight line unless compelled by an external force to act otherwise. If an atheist believes God does not exist, so what is rotating the earth? The earth is supposed to be static. The earth is rotating on its axis once in 24 hours and revolve around the sun once in 365 1/4 days. How is that possible? There must be a force driving it. You call it a force. You call it a universe. Some people call it universe. People use all sorts of names. Transcendental energy. I choose to call it God. Who has put such, when you look at the way the world has been designed, look at the water cycle, look at the carbon cycle, look at the phosphorus cycle, look at the way our world is designed to replenish itself, but for man activity that is destroying it. There is an intelligence behind this design. There is a creator. There's an intelligence. If you believe, and if you're an atheist, then you believe that the earth can create itself. But that is a self-defeating argument, because that is against the law of physics, Newton's law of motion, that nothing can change a motion or direction of the way it is unless compelled by an external force. Unless compelled by an external force to act otherwise. It is easier to defeat the atheist argument, therefore. The creator must be more intelligent than the creation. That means the creator is at a higher level and dimension of reality than the creation. So, an author is more intelligent than the book he wrote. An inventor is more intelligent than what he invented. A furniture is more intelligent than the chair that he created. So God gave us life. God that gave us life has something more than life, much more superior to life. That is why he's able to create life. So answer to that question, God is a spirit. He cannot be taken to a lab, cannot be assessed or evaluated by man, because man is limited. But if you now want to know about God, you want to appreciate God, you want to feel God, the Bible told us what to do. The Bible told us what to do. It says, for the invisible things of him, for the invisible things of him, from the creation of the world, are clearly seen. The invisible things about God are clearly seen, being understood. Being understood by the things that are made. Being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and the Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Another translation call it like this. There are things about God that people cannot see. His eternal power and all that he makes that make him God. But since the beginning of the world, those things have been easy for people to understand. They are made clear. The things we want to know about God are made clear in what God has made. So people have no excuse for the evil they did. God's eternal power and character cannot be seen. But from the beginning of creation, God has shown that he has shown what these are like. All by all that he has made. So the work of the hand of God give us an idea of his character, give us an idea of his person. So you want to know who he is? Just observe nature. Observe the firmament. When I'm flying and I see the awesomeness of the creation, 35,000, 33,000 feet. You appreciate the wonders of God. Sometimes you are flying through some countries and you see some mountain, see some nature. It's just a beautiful place. So the scripture is saying, look, you want to know about God? Observe ant, observe nature, observe the water cycle, observe the phosphorus cycle. Just take time to observe. If you observe nature, you cannot say God does not exist. You cannot. You cannot. You cannot. Why can't you? You cannot, because what you see, if you are observant, you must begin to ask questions. Who put it in place? Why is this such? Who put this masterpiece in place? There is an intelligence behind it. Some choose to call it universe. I choose to call it God. Some choose to call it force of nature. I choose to call it God. So it's a self-defeating argument for an atheist. Look at my second question today. God is so great beyond human comprehension. Now, if God is so great, like I've said, how can it be summarized in a tiny book called the Bible? How can a great God be summarized in a tiny book called the Bible? That's my second question today. If you look at the galaxy where the Earth is found, you know there are different galaxies, but the Earth is found in the Milky Way galaxy. The Earth is found in the Milky Way galaxy. If you look at that galaxy, if you look at the vastness of the galaxies, how great it is. Galaxy is defined as a gravitationally bound system of stars, stellar remnant, interstellar gas, dust, and dark matter. The word is derived from the Greek galaxia, literally mean milky, and a reference to the Milky Way galaxy. A reference to the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy contains the solar system. The galaxy range in size from the dwarf, which is just a few hundreds of millions of stars, to giant that is 100 trillions of stars. Each orbiting its galaxy center of mass. And we are found in the Milky Way galaxy. It is believed that the Milky Way was caused by the ignition of fiery exhalation of some stars that are large, numerous, and close together. The Milky Way galaxy contains the solar system where the Earth is. So when you look at the Earth, it's so small. When you look at the solar system, then when you look at the Milky Way galaxies, and there are several galaxies in our universe. So if you look at the Milky Way galaxy, the Earth is so small. As a component of the Milky Way galaxy, the Earth is so small. The Earth is a tiny fraction of it. Now, if the whole Earth, as big as it appears to us, is a tiny fraction of the Milky Way galaxy, how can you imagine we are as man? We are so tiny, like a speck. We are too tiny. That's why you can't, sometimes the way we talk as human, as if all is about us, nothing can happen without you. We just talk like we are all in all. Some human beings are so ignorant. So ignorant. The way they talk. Because you are so tiny in this world. This Earth is so tiny in the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is small compared to the universe itself. So compared to the galaxy, compared to the universe with billions of galaxies, the universe has billions of galaxies. And one of those galaxies is Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy has the solar system where we have the Earth where you are. Now, compare that to the creator of all these galaxies called God. Who created them? So man is so finite and so limited. Man is one of the weakest of all creation. But what made man different and special is that God put a tiny fraction of his spirit in man. He said, and God breathed into man, and man became a living soul. That's a thinking being. He breathed into man, and man became a thinking being, a living soul, a thinking being, a living soul. So he put a little of himself in us. A little of himself in us. That's what makes us different, even though we are the weakest, but we are the wisest. This little breath of God in us empower man to be able to manage the earth and dominate the earth. So please note, The Bible is a tiny information about God. But that tiny information is what is necessary for us as humans to be able to relate with him, learn about him, and live a meaningful life on earth. But please, no, Bible does not contain all there is about God. Bible does not fully represent all that needs to be known about God. Of course, if you know everything about God, then you'll be God yourself. So you really cannot know all about him. And that is fine, because that's what makes him God. That's what makes him God. So the much in the Bible is the much we know to be able to function as human on earth and relate to him. To be able to function as human on earth and relate to him. Question 3. Why is it that God chooses to reveal himself through Jews and not through Africans? Why did he choose Jews? Why did he not choose Africans? These are very important questions that even the African traditional religion ask. That's why they said Christianity is the religion of the Jews. But the Jews don't even believe in Christianity. They believe in Judaism. He says it's the religion of the West. That's not true. They were all idol worshippers before Paul. You know, Paul was the one that actually took Christianity to the West. He went to Rome, he preached in Italy. And the Roman government, using its power, extend the Christianity. Also remember very well that at the day of the Pentecost, remember that thousands gave their life to Christ on that day. Who are those people that were in that place at Pentecost? Listen to them. Listen to those that were there, that heard about the gospel. Some of which gave their life to Christ. They are from Persia, from Media, from Elam, from Mesopotamia, from Judea, from Cappadocia, from Pontus, from Asia, from Phrygia, from Pamphylia. Listen to this, from Egypt. That's why I said Christianity came into Africa before white men brought it. From Egypt. And they went back. Remember, they went back. From Rome. From Libya. From Libya. From Cyrene. Cyrene is a region in Africa. From Cyrene. From Cyrene. From Rome. And Peter preached to all of them. Peter preached to all of them. Remember the Ethiopian eunuch who also was going back, that received Christ on his way back to Africa. So many of them received the gospel and went back to Africa before the white men brought it. Just emphasizing what I talked about last week, that Christianity is not white man religion, by the way. Now, why did he choose Jews? Now, if you know something about God, let me give you an example of how God operates. Look at the system, how a child is born. God created a system that a child, a full-grown human being, started with an egg and a sperm that fused together to form a zygote. God, even though he has a global picture in mind, starts with a seed. In his operation, look at the way he created Adam and Eve. Two people in one small location, Garden of Eden, somewhere between Africa and Middle East. Between Africa and Middle East, Garden of Eden. So it starts small. It starts small. So God will always start small. God will always start small. He will always start small. That is his plan. That's the way he does. So he started with Abraham. By the way, Abraham was not a Jew. I hope you know. Abraham was not a Jew. Abraham, Isaac, they were not Jews. Jacob were not Jews. Jacob gave birth to the 12 tribes from which the Jews emerged. So he did not choose the Jews, actually. He just found a man that he believed would be able to transmit the message. And God and the scripture testify to that. That this man can transmit the message. And because he has what it takes to transmit the message, God chose him. God chose him. God chose him. The scripture says that Abraham has what it takes to command his household to follow what is learning from God. He has what it takes. He has what it takes. And that was why he was chosen. That was why he was chosen. He was not a Jew, like some people make us to believe. He said, "For I know that he will command his children and his household after him, and they will keep the law of God to do justice and judgment." The Lord said, "Shall I hide what I want to do from Abraham?" He will command his household. He will not hide anything from him because of what he knows Abraham will do. So God needs a family, an individual who will transfer that message down his generation. And because he sees the end from the beginning, he could see that Abraham can do that job. And so he chose Abraham. He did not choose the Jews because there was no Jew at this time. And he will start from somewhere. It is very important for you to know that everything that God does starts like a seed, which is a prototype. Which is a prototype. Everything that God does starts like a seed, which is a prototype. It is a prototype of the big picture. So he has the whole world in mind before he chose Abraham, but he needed a model to show to the whole world. Every product you see today starts as a model and a prototype in the mind of someone. Every product you see today starts as a model or prototype in the mind of someone. Even though today you are seeing it as a product, but it starts as a model or prototype in the mind of someone, and then the person gave back to that idea. Every product you see today starts as a model or prototype that is tested and test run. Very big things start in small way. So the Jews came to Mesopotamia, which is from Persia, which is from the Persian civilization, and from this one man that came out of Mesopotamia, God created the Jews from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. So the Jews are new. They are not as old as the Chinese. The Chinese were already existing before the Jews. But God gave a reason why he chose Abraham out of the people in Mesopotamia. He knew the character of Abraham. He knew the character of Abraham. That he will command his house to keep the law. He knew the character of Abraham. So Jews are new. He said, because he knew Abraham was going to ensure that what he is going to teach him, he will pass it down to his generation. And Abraham did that. passed down. In fact, to tell you that Abraham did a fantastic job, even his son, Isaac, passed it down to Jacob. Even his son, Isaac, passed it down to Jacob. Even his son, Isaac, passed it down to Jacob. Do you know the interesting thing? Jacob passed it down to all his children to the extent that even though Joseph was in a strange land, away from his father, where his father will not see him, even if he did something untoward and something wrong, guess what? This man kept himself, will not sleep with the wife of his master. And he said, how can I do this and sin against God? Even when nobody is there to see him. Can you see? God can see that Abraham will do a diligent job, which is a challenge for us today in this generation. You know, I was telling my colleague in the office yesterday that parenting now, you want to marry and have kids? Think twice. Parenting now is a very serious job. And it's going to get worse and worse. Children have so much access to information. Parents are too busy working and making money. They do not have time to know what their children are seeing and reading and learning. And the children are getting worse than even their parents. And because nobody teaches you about parenting, nobody teaches you about parenting. But you cannot become a good parent by default because you were not an engineer by default. You were not a lawyer by default. You were not a doctor by default. You were not a computer scientist by default. You cannot be a good parent by default. You can also not be a good husband or good wife by default. You must learn how to be a good wife and good husband. You must learn how to be a good parent. But the parents are too busy looking for money and they want to give out to children. But Abraham, God knew this man has a curriculum for his children and family. He will ensure whatsoever he learned from me, he will pass it down. And he chose Abraham. He didn't choose the Jews like some people say. He didn't choose the Jews. And he didn't find anybody in Africa. But he found someone in Mesopotamia. Somewhere in the Middle East. And the person was able to do the job. And he did it very well. He said he knew Abraham was going to ensure that he transferred the knowledge of God to his children. The knowledge of God to his children. And that was exactly what happened. That was exactly what happened. The Mesopotamian area is said to be the home today of modern Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey, and Iran, and Syria. Mesopotamia. In those olden days, in today's civilization, is where you find Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey, and Syria. And you can see it's somewhere in the Middle East. And he found this man. And the man did a fantastic job, I must say. He said he knew he's going to pass it down. And he passed it down. This quality of Abraham is very important because his descendant was going to be prototype. And what they do in relation to God was going to be an example for others to follow. So choosing Abraham was both a liability and responsibility, in addition to the blessing of God on Abraham and on his descendant. There's a responsibility on him and a liability on God if he fails, but he sees the end from the beginning. My last question today before we close is, why does God have to go through this hectic way to be able to reveal himself to humanity? Because he is God. He can just do it rather than going through this long route as we saw in the Old Testament. Also, how do we ensure that this God of the Jews is not like any other paganistic god of other tribes and the rest of the world? What makes this God different from others? Why did he have to go through different routes? No, there's something, when you hear that question, what many people don't know is that God created us. He knows us very well. He understood very well our nature. And the world was evolving. When I see the way God works, okay, he created Adam and Eve. But he knew the problem that Adam and Eve created because they didn't grow. They were created as an adult. And that poses a problem for them. But he created a system to perpetuate men. So a child can grow through a process. Even the process of giving birth is a lesson for us. Everything, God could have created the whole world in one day. He created it in 6 days. It's a lesson for us. Everything that God does, he understands that, look, if he do things the way he is as God, he will be setting a bad example for us because we don't have his capacity. So based on our knowledge per time, based on our understanding per time, based on our progression and progress as human per time, God revealed to mankind what next? What next? Jesus could not have come before the time he came. In fact, even when he came, they still kill him. They still kill him. They still kill him. They still kill him. Imagine if he has come before. He can't even grow. Because of comprehending what Jesus came to literally change everything mankind knew about God. Literally. At least most things we knew about God. But those things that God allowed in the Old Testament, he allowed it because of the way we were, our understanding. It's just like incest. Some people will ask, okay, Adam gave birth to Abel and Esau. They will now say, so how did they have children? Because Esau eventually have children. If you read the Bible, he also said that Adam and Eve gave birth to other children, including girls, but they were allowed to marry themselves. Then, have you ever wondered why women were not allowed to go out when they're on their period in the Old Testament? Because there was no sanitary pad. God gave, do you know why then you must wash your hand to eat? Because there was no antibiotics. There was no antibiotics. So God gave instruction to us based on the way we added. So the way of washing, cleaning up is for hygienic purpose. Today you can go to God and pray even if you have not had your bath. But those laws were put in place. That's what they call them, ceremonial law. So God relay with us per time based on the era we are, the available technology, the available machines. That's why if Christ is to come today, Christ will use Facebook. He will fly in planes. Christ will use internet. He will use the modern technology because every good and perfect gift is from above. So he relay with us based on the way we are per time. If you don't have that understanding that God relay with mankind, so at some point he said we should use an animal because there must be shedding of blood. But the animal was imperfect, but we had to use it at that time because it was not time for Christ to come yet, because we are not ready to receive him. We are not ready to receive him. And he understands our psyche. What you need to first understand is that Jews, that is Abraham, was initially a pagan, just like many other nations who were formed after the scattering of the Tower of Babel. the challenge of many nations with different gods is that this will mean mankind cannot are not equal because each one believes they are better than the other because of the God they believe in. Can you see that? That's the challenge of pagan God. The pagan God make us feel that because you worship this God, you are not equal to this person. It doesn't make us to be equal. Because the God that's why a Muslim will kill a Christian and call him unbeliever. That's why even Christians, wrongly during the crusade, kill so-called Christians. Kill during the crusade. You can go and read about the crusade. You can go and read about the crusade. Advancing the cause. And it was, in a way, necessary because Islam was going to wipe out. You know, sometimes when you hear some of those history, Islam was going to wipe out Christianity completely. And they need to fight back. So for men to be equal, we must be traced to one origin. One origin. If we are going to be seen as equal as human, we must be trained to one origin, which is the higher intelligence that is now called God. That higher intelligence has now decided to reintroduce himself to mankind so as to help mankind forsake other gods. So as to let mankind forsake other God. So as to let mankind forsake other God. And that was very important. Forsake other God and follow him. The God of the Bible is not a Jewish God. No. And does not belong to the Jewish people. No. Remember, when God called Abraham, there was no Jew. So you can't say he's the God of Jews. Because when they called Abraham, he was not Jew. He was not Jew. He's not the God of anybody, he's the God of everybody. Talking about why God has to reintroduce himself to mankind through this long route, one thing we need to note is that every big thing starts small. And that is the principle that God always allows to show that everything involves a process of development. You will see that in the way he created just 2 human beings in the Garden of Eden. You will see that the way it started with Jesus having a few disciples who expanded it. You will see that in the way 2 small egg and sperm will form a zygote and become a full human being over a period. You will see the way it started in a small place by creating a Garden of Eden, a small place in the earth. It starts small and expanded. That's its process, the methodology, gestation. It is only small things that become big because there must be a process in reality. That's why a small seed can become a big tree by germinating and growing. The need for process enables management and sustenance of the product. And this fosters predictability. The need for process enable management and sustenance of the product. This fosters predictability. The need for process make God to introduce time, make God to introduce space and introduce matter. Time, space, matter. Remember, God exists outside of time. God does not exist in time. He doesn't exist. You exist in 3 blocks. There's a block of yesterday, there's a block of today, there's a block of tomorrow. You remember of yesterday, you can imagine tomorrow, but you only have access to today. So introduce matter. Matter creates space. Space creates time. Introduce matter. Matter creates space. Space creates time. The matter starts small and it takes time and occupies more space as it grows. A baby starts as a zygote in the womb. And it takes 9 months for the baby to be born. 9 months. A tree starts as a seed. A tree starts as a seed, and it takes years to become mature. God of heaven is not just God of Abraham only. God of heaven is not just God of Isaac only. It's not just God of Jacob only. It's not God of the Jews, but it's God of everyone. He's the God of everyone. He's the God of everyone. He's the God of everyone. So Abraham is just a channel through which God chooses to introduce himself to the world. Abraham is just a channel. Abraham is just a channel through which God has chosen to introduce himself to the world. He could have used any other person, but he found Abraham worthy to do that job. And I must say, Abraham did a very fantastic job. Let me stop here today. This is going to be almost a 10-part process. And I'm hoping it's going to be an interesting time for all of us. Let me hear from you today. Victoria, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I don't know, is it my Victoria? Okay.
Oh.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, sir.
Tell me,
Well,
what is falling off your eyes?
Actually, the purpose for joining tonight's meeting is because I know it's going to be helpful in ways I may not even know yet. Like, it may seem like, oh, it's about faith. I'm not really, nobody's asking me questions, but actually people can these questions, they come up when you're not ready for it. Like,
yes, exactly.
So for me, I think it's something that I will just keep listening to, like join in and listen to and continue to gain, because when the time comes and then I'm questioned on my faith, I'll be able to give answers. So sir, I'm grateful. Thank you, sir.
And what have you learned today?
Okay, about God. You know, one thing I heard you mention when you asked that, when one of the questions was that why would God, a big God introduce himself through a small book? How will a small book called the Bible describe a big God? We're able to make it clear that even this, where we are, the earth is so small because we are in a galaxy. We are in the Milky Way. I mean, the sun is in the Milky Way galaxy. That is just one out of the many galaxies that we have. So God actually usually starts, whenever he wants to begin something big, he begins small, right? And God, where we are is just something so small compared to who God is. And the Bible is just a book that helps us to know how we ought to live here on earth, like the life we ought to live here on earth. So that's something that I've heard today, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Victor, I hope you have questions today. Hello, Victor.
Good evening, sir.
I said, I hope you have questions because it's because of you I started this series.
Sir, I have a lot.
If Victor was not online today, I would have penalized himself.
Hello?
Hello, yes, I'm with you. I say I have a lot to
Yeah, go ahead.
I said if Victor was not online tonight, I would have penalized him.
No. Even last week I could not attend because of the program. But I've actually listened to the first part, the one of last week, and it's usually good that this day has finally come because that I've been long expecting today. Well, first of all, thank you very much for starting this series, and I really hope it's going to be a long. Well, he said part 10. I think it's longer than that because I think personally to me, no, the first speaker was saying that sometimes this question come at a time that that you're not expecting. But I think that time has come for me, and I think it came, benefit has come because when I was in school, I met people because I was in different associations, so I met people with different views. And I have a friend that's agnostic. I have one that's an atheist, and not just friends, one that I know. In fact, I have their WhatsApp, like we from time to time. But I really didn't. Well, I was really scared of engaging them because I think those people, they are not just there. What I noticed is that many of them are not foolish people. Like foolish in the sense that they are knowledgeable people. They're people that have read a lot. So they're not just talking.
They've done research.
Yes, they're not just talking.
They've not been able to find answer to some question, and they have drawn conclusion wrongly.
Exactly, sir. So, and some of them, they've asked some questions that I could never even answer. And to be very honest, even personally, to that even affect, because at the point I was actually doubting whether this Christianity was not really a scam too.
No,
because I could not even tell my parents because they would think maybe a demon possessed or something.
Victor, sincerely,
yes, sir.
This is what is in the mind of a lot of young people, I'm telling you. And if we don't begin to explain, let them see reason and let them know that number one, first thing first, the brand of Christianity as presented is wrong. I'm telling you. The brand, the way we present it is wrong. That way we are presented that is wrong is making young people to now doubt that this thing is even real. Why should I even bother myself in the first place?
Yes, sir.
So what's your question?
So, sir, so like I have because some of there was one of my friends I was talking to was telling me that it's not just that he's just identities from nothing, that he has read. He told me he has read the Bible. It's not about 6 times. And me, I don't think I've even finished it. All the time I start, I don't finish. He told me I read it like 6 times. That there's no verse. Because I look at it, many of them are not just that they actually know a lot. So I was actually very scared of engaging them because I feel that when it comes to knowledge, they actually know more than me. Because one of them was telling me he has read it like 6 times, and me, I struggled to even finish it for.
Can you see now? Can you see that those that are saying God does not exist, they are reading faster and better than us? You know? Do you understand? As in those that say God does not exist, they are reading more. Devil is ensuring that he empowered them with information. I don't know if you joined me when I started. Being an atheist for me is self-defeating. If you say you're an atheist and you believe in science, then I would doubt your atheism. Because atheism means that you believe that God does not exist. I can understand if you are agnostic, which says nobody understands anything about God. But if you say God does not exist, what that means is that you are saying the earth can rotate of its own accord without any force driving it. But that would be against the Newton law of motion that says nothing can move unless something moves it. So what is moving the earth? You say it's a force. From where? You call it supreme intelligence. I'm okay. Call it whatever name you want to call it. Call it universe, call it supernatural intelligence, supreme intelligence. I choose to call him God. I choose to call him God. Go ahead with your question.
So, sir, I think first of all, I think what's one major thing I took away from this teaching today is that is the idea of God in itself. That and the illustration you made was just what was very profound for me, because he said that an author is more intelligent than a book.
Yes.
That man is limited and our understanding cannot comprehend the entirety of God.
Yes.
And I also like the example that he made, that the Bible itself is not the entirety of what God represents.
It's not exhaustive.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was one because I actually believe it was before, because that was one of the questions that my atheist friend was asking me, that with this Bible they are saying, is he all about God? And I was saying, my answer was yes, but I didn't have the fact to back up what I was saying. So I could not explain it. So I ran away. I didn't even try to even. So, but I think now.
Victor, by not being able to answer that question, you are strengthening the conviction of that guy. You are strengthening his conviction to remain an atheist. And that's the challenge of many Christians. By not being able to answer, we are strengthening the conviction of being an atheist. You are encouraging them to remain like that. Because those of us that claim to be Christian, we can't even answer simple questions these guys are asking us.
And when I was trying to reach out to one of my leaders in church about some of these questions, he was asking me that when you are reading the Bible, you don't bring science, you don't try to use your intelligence, you don't try to use your brain to understand.
That is exactly what makes atheists to hate Christianity. I should not use my brain. So why did God give me brain when I should not use it? No, why did God give me a brain when I'm not supposed to use it? Why? Then I don't need a brain again if I'm not supposed to use it to reason about him, to ask questions. You, by that answering that, you make atheists to see you as being foolish.
Because I was having that struggle. Was like, you know, that if you try to, because actually that I actually have that be having that personal question to that. Wait, if we are saying that we should not use our intelligence, you should not you should not ask questions about some of the things that we read in the Bible. So why is the brain not there for? Was because and he was like, you know, that if you go that way, you can be lost. Some things in the Bible you cannot understand it by your normal intelligence, and that's one of the questions I was asking. But anyway, so for me personally, I think because I don't want to say I actually became an atheist, but one question when we're having discussion and many of the arguments seems to be beating mine because of my own limited understanding and question that my leaders could not answer. That I was asking them. But one question that somehow kept me was that what after the whole argument, there's one question I feel that's the important question I feel that they could not answer, and that was like the lifeline, because going by their own reasoning. Because I think one of them is like, where do we come from? Like where the man come from? What's our origin? So I think the atheists cannot answer that question. Number two is that why are we here? Why are we on the earth? Why are we not just it? Why are we here? And I think the third one is, where are we going? So I think those three questions was what I see that the atheists cannot satisfy. In fact, they cannot even answer it in any scientific way. So that was like the lifeline that I held on to. Anyway, so that's that. So I think from today, I think the first question that you asked again, like I think the first question you tried to answer was one talking about what differentiates the Christian God from the paganistic God.
Yes.
And I think first of all, I think paganism itself is like I think is the belief of non-existence. I think paganism itself is unbeliever, like a non-believer. So it doesn't even believe
non-believer in the
God,
Christian
that God exists in itself.
The paganism.
Okay, the Christian God.
Pagan believes in God.
Okay.
A pagan, I'm trying to get a dictionary definition. A person holding religious belief other than those of the main world religion. He holds a religious belief. He believes in a God, but doesn't believe in. He's not a Muslim, he's not a Christian, he's not an Hindu. That's what they call them, pagan.
Oh, okay.
And it was first used in the 4th century by early Christians. And they were used for people in Roman Empire who practiced polytheism. They practice polytheism. They believe in many gods. So a pagan believes in many gods, but not in Christian God.
Oh, okay. So and I think that question was saying that like what, because a Christian will call a Muslim unbeliever, and a Muslim will also call a Christian unbeliever. So because I think that was one of the questions that one of my friends was asking, that wait, who is not the real one among everybody? You say my own God is my own way is the way to heaven. You say your own way is the true way, and the Undu say my own way is the true way. So at the end of the day, so why are we just because what I want to ask, so what differentiates you from others? Because you claim you have the Bible, the Muslim claim he has the Quran. The I don't know of any other major religion. They all have their own books. So I know that much. So what is now the difference between the major religion? But what I try to, for my own personal, like struggle on that. I was trying to see, I saw that maybe that's actually what the Christian claim. I think one of another thing that made me believe in the Christian gods during those periods that I saw that the Bible was one of like the oldest book. Like there was no book that was older. There's no known book present now. I thought that is Bible, and over time that's continued to exist from one generation or one century to another. I think that was one of I felt that the longevity, the longevity of the Bible speaks something that there will be something more. And I think that's my own personal answer to that. That this Bible has been the oldest. No other book rate higher than this. So I felt that maybe that was my own way of answering that question. I don't know if that in itself is sufficient, because it's just like everybody has their own religion. So what really differentiates you from others? You have your own special. The Muslims have their own and sacrifices that they they have their own ceremonies. Just like we have we have the Lord's Supper, we have Easter. Some they have Christmas period. The Muslims have their own. So at the end of the day, so why is Christianity? Why is it different from the other? Because many a time they have like similar. You can see like similarities between all these religions. Like
We
they
are
share the
going
same holy
to
book.
we are
They
going
have
to
holy days. They
answer
have days that they celebrate.
we are going to answer that question in the course of this conversation. What makes Christianity different from other religions? Don't worry. It's going to be the question.
Oh, okay. Okay, sir.
Yes.
So there are many other questions, teacher, but I don't know if I can start asking them now. Even I don't know, because
No, I was
maybe I
thinking
don't.
we ask them. You've not asked any, you've been explaining. I was expecting you to ask some. If it's one that
Okay.
I have explanation for in future, I will let you know. If not, I can answer immediately if I have the answer.
Oh, okay. I think the one question that someone was that if God is a God of mercy and God forgives sinner, when they said when the devil sinned against God in heaven by saying when he become God, why did God cast him out? Why did God not forgive the devil and restore him, make him in his coin? Why did he send the devil to the world, into a world that he was still going to create, or he already created? I don't know at what point the devil came to the world. That was, I think, she was after creation. So why did God send the devil to the world that he created? And even the world, one of the major problem of the world now is the devil, because the sickness we have today in the world, some temptation we have today in the world, is because of the devil. So why did God not forgive?
Hold on. The way you should look at it is there is something called power dynamics. The person that creates a problem was the part of the solution. Power dynamic distinct. The person that caused the problem of sin in the world is the devil. And for the solution to come, devil must be part of the process. And that's why devil had to put Jesus on the cross. That's why devil has to remain on ground. God already have a plan for him eternally. There is a plan already ahead. There is a plan. And it was already cast down before Adam and Eve were created, because he came to meet them in the garden already afterwards. So he was already here before God created Adam and Eve. Let me tell you something you don't understand about God. God understands that's the challenge of Christianity. You think you make mistake and you think that's the end. God already knows you will make mistake. You know what he did? He make a way out of it. He already anticipates your error. So he already make a way out for you. He already make a way out for you. Immediately they had that issue in the Garden of Eden. He promised. Number one, he killed the animal, covered them, which is a type of covering of their sin. And of course, he made provision and pronouncement about the seed of the woman, which eventually came as Christ, which came thousands of years after. And I try to explain today why it took a process for that to happen, because it could not happen immediately. But on the issue of the devil, maybe by the time we discuss about the devil in future also, in this series, maybe that would have answered some of your questions. For example, why did Satan in the first place? We're going to discuss all that. Why can't God forgive them?
Okay, sir.
I think the question. We'll discuss that. Go ahead.
Okay, another question was talking about like that Christian claim that the Bible is an absolute book, that the word of God
That's not true.
there is
That's not
settled
true.
and everything.
That's not true.
Eh?
That's not true.
But Sammy said that
Hold on,
thy
hold
word
on,
is settled.
hold on. Oh. There are errors in the Bible, but the error is not enough to invalidate the content. There are errors in the Bible. Because when they were writing, you will notice, I don't know the kind of Bible you use. If you are reading some Bible, you will, in my Bible, it will show some word in italics. Those words in italics, and it's faint. And the reason why is that the scroll, some of the words already disappear. They can't see it. And they use for a verb or adjective, or like I'm looking at Genesis chapter 24 verse 52 now. And it came to pass that when Abraham's servant heard the word, he worshiped the Lord. Then there's a space there. And then to the earth. But this Bible put bowing himself. If you look at that, it's consistent with that statement. But they put it there. But in my Bible, they put it in italics to say that this is not in the original scroll, but in line with this statement, this complete that sentence. He worshiped the Lord. Then that the word there was empty, was not clear. Then to the earth was clear. So it's logical to know that, okay, bound to himself to the earth is most likely be the word that is missing there. So there are missing parts like that in the Bible. So there's some claim we make about the Bible. We shouldn't talk like Muslim. If you talk like Muslim, it's self-defeating. The issue is those things that were missing, those areas, those scrolls that were missing, those words, they were able to slot in some words to replace them, but they didn't change the content. They didn't change the fundamental truth about what the Bible tried to pass across. But to say that the Bible is complete, it's unaltered, that's not true. There are information there that are incomplete. What are you talking about? It's obvious. It's obvious. I mean, this is in fact.
Wow.
Anybody saying that is just, it's just not accepting that. But this is the reality now. You shouldn't say that because that's not true. But the fact is that those information that are missing are not enough to invalidate the central message of the scripture, which is Christ. So you can't, if you don't accept this, let me read another one. Genesis 26 verse 7. And the men of the place asked, there was a space there, ask dash of his wife. Then they put there him of his wife. And he said, she dash my sister. They put there is. For he feared to say dash my wife. She is my wife. Let's dash the men of the place. Then they put, let's said he, the men of the place. These are common. There are just many of them in the scriptures. So you cannot say it's not, there are issues. But this issue is not enough to invalidate the central message. But to say that the messages and nothing is, that's a lie, big lie. It's too obvious now. Unless you are not reasoning and you are not reading and you are not studying and learning and be able to see how the Bible was written, how it was interpreted, how it was written down, to be able to know that these are issues. But the issue are not, there are enough scrolls to give us the Bible complete the way we have it today. But there are some of those scrolls that the messages scratch away because it was a papyrus that they used that time scroll, and some of these materials took many years, and some of them, but they were able to repeat. But those words are just verbs here and there, adjective, noun, you know, and what's it, a pronoun. Those are the words that were inserted. So I don't know how your Bible looks like, but my Bible is very obvious there. It will be faint and in italics, so you can spot it.
Wow, I never knew this how.
It's faint and it's in italics. So we should not, there are some claims that Muslims make we should not make. Talking about the fact that the book is absolute, the book is eternal, the book is this, the book. No. It's Christ that is eternal, not the book. Christ is the word. We can make claim about Christ, the word personified as being eternal, as being complete, as being an altar, as being absolute, the word personified, not what is written down, some of which we can see some of the issues with it already.
Mm.
We shouldn't, any Christian that makes those claims is ignorance. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sir. So another question is the issue of God is love, and looking at the account of the children of Israel, that God is love, and God, that it was the same God that commanded Israel to go and kill, that when
Hold on,
it
hold on,
was in
hold
the
on,
Old
hold on,
Testament,
hold on. Let me
as
tell
they
you
were
something.
moving,
Let me tell you something
said
today.
go and kill.
Let me tell you something today. Have you ever wondered why God said we should not eat the tree of good and evil? Knowledge of good and evil. You know that's the tree they are not supposed to eat at the earth. Do you know that?
Hmm.
Do you know
Yes,
that?
sir.
God does not want you to know good and evil. He doesn't want you to live based on moral. No. That's not his plan. If you use good and evil to judge God, God do what is necessary, not what is good or evil. Every time you see an action commanded by God, God always do what is necessary. A soldier, a Christian soldier who is fighting in his country, in Ukraine, against Russia, is he doing good or evil by killing a Russian soldier? And he's a Christian.
He's doing good.
If you judge with good and evil, you will not defend your country. He needs to do what is necessary.
Okay, so I understand. But even in today's war,
don't understand. I'm putting that to let you. So when you judge God, try to understand that He does what is necessary. If you judge God based on good and evil, you will lose Him. There's so many things you will not understand if you use good and evil to judge His actions and instructions. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Because I was saying that it was, if it was that they were going to conquer the land, they killed the soldiers, the men, but now they say even the children, even those that know nothing about that, just the normal.
If you preserve the children, you are preserving future enemy. If you preserve the children, you are preserving future enemy. They're going to hear the story and they're going to fight back.
Wow. So their right to life is so they are caused because they were born by a Midian, or they were born by an Amorite, or by a Jebusite.
You say what?
So I'm like, is it not, I'm not going to say that, is it fair that because a child was born into from a Moab family,
now
that
let me
means that
tell
it doesn't
you,
have
let
the
me
right
tell
to
you
life?
something.
Because
Let me tell you something. You know, sometimes God is going to save the world. Today in the world, we have billions of people. God has a plan to save the world that is going to have billions of people. To be able to achieve that aim, He needed to do what is necessary. There are few people that die, but there are billions of people that will be lost if this is not done. Which one is better? To take care of these people now, to be able to preserve these people who will create the room for save billions of people in the future. Which one is better? God sees the bigger picture. He look at what is happening now. Victor, I like your questions. I'll come back to you. Let me hear from Favor before we close today. I want to ensure I hear from her. Favor, Atasie, how are you? Hello, Favor. Favor, good evening. Are you there? You can unmute yourself. You are muted. Okay, I think Favor is still busy. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes,
Good evening,
go
sir.
ahead. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so
What
much for
are you
this.
tonight? You said what?
I said thanks a lot for this teaching. I've learned a lot, although I was on my way home, so I didn't really follow, but I picked a few things from what has been said. Like, I learned that God is not just the God of the Jews, okay? The fact that He brought the knowledge through one person or through those people does not mean that it's just for them. And that to achieve a bigger thing, you need to start from little, like small. Like you said earlier, that like things are in process. It's just like a sperm and an egg from a zygote, and it takes process to start growing into a baby. So that really stood out for me. Like, things are in processes, and the fact that it came from one particular place does not mean that it belongs to that. It's just a way through which it can like propagate to other places. So that's what I really learned.
All right. Good to hear from you. Victor, continue your
Thank you, sir. Sir, please, I have a question. Maybe after Victor. Okay, like sometimes, like if you talk to some people about who God is and the Trinity, this one is related to the Trinity. I can remember a time when I went to
preach to somebody. She's a Muslim, so she was like, how can Christ be the Son of God? Can God give birth? Things like that. So I will need more clarity on that.
Of course, you know God does not give birth now. It's a spirit.
I know, of course, but like, she's like, how can you say Jesus is the Son of God?
How can you say?
So I was trying to tell her that like Jesus and God, they are like one. So Jesus is like a son of God. She was like, how did he come to be? How can Jesus be the Son of God? So I will need more clarity on that because I couldn't answer her really that day.
The lady presupposes that. That's one of the arguments they bring up. Presupposes that for you to call someone a son, you must have given back to the child. But is that true? Even in our world today? Even in our world today, when you say someone is a son, does that mean you gave back to the person? Some leaders, some religious leader will say, that man, that pastor is my son in the Lord. Why did you say my son in the Lord?
Okay.
So you can't just say, why are you, if your only understanding of a son is that he must give back, then something is wrong with the way you are thinking, because it's a spirit, he can't give back.
True.
These are words to describe three personalities in one. Describe three personalities in one, who are co-equal, working together, but manifesting in different ways. Three personalities in one. They are distinct, they are united, and three personalities in one. And you will see it every time in the Bible. For example, when Jesus was baptized, the Son was being baptized. The Holy Spirit descended as a dove on him, and there is a voice from heaven. You see the three of them together at the same time, working together.
Yes.
And you see the distinct, this is the distinct personality. Three distinct personalities. Can you see the way they work together? So you don't need to convince them about Trinity. That's not your job. That's not your job at all. You don't try to convince people about Trinity. Those are doctrinal issues. Even within Christianity, there's argument about Trinity. But those are not, the challenge I have with Christianity sometimes is we major so much on minor, arguing on what is non-essential. How does I believe in Trinity? I don't believe in Trinity. Do you believe in God? You believe in Jesus? You believe in Holy Spirit? That's all. Either they, whatever name you call it, that's your headache. As long as you believe in it, that's okay. That's all that is important. All the dynamics about that, don't bother yourself. There are two, what's the name? They are not essential information that should.
They're not the main thing.
They're not the main thing now. The main thing is have relationship with, receive Christ, have relationship with God, have relationship with the Holy Spirit. That's what is important. That you cannot comprehend the understanding of how they function. Don't worry about that. Just do your own part.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that clarity. Thank you very much.
Victor, let me see if I can take one more question before we close.
Oh, okay, sir. I think this one is, I think you have kind of answered them, because I didn't prepare to ask so many questions today, but by next week I will write them down.
You write it? Okay, better. I think it makes sense. Like I said, if it's along some of the questions we ask in future, of course I will. If not, then I will attempt to answer. But most of the time, what I'm trying to do basically through this series is to make it as interactive as possible. Someone said, sir, what should we major on receive Christ, have relation with the Holy Spirit? Yes, receive Christ into your life, have relationship with God as a father, and have fellowship with the Holy Spirit to receive inspiration. Period. Receive Christ is the door. By receiving him, you are now a son, but ensure you keep that relationship with him. And then fellowship with the Spirit. Ensure you are receiving inspiration and manifesting what is coming through from that inspiration. Because if you are only in religion when your Christianity is not being productive, when there's nothing coming out of your Christianity, you are just in religion. You are a Christian when you are productive, when mankind can see your good works and glorify your Father. Christ was productive. Christ is productive. Christ's likeness is productivity, either through the fruit of the Spirit or through the work of your hand or through your skill and competence. As long as you are manifesting increasing righteousness, peace, and joy, you are being productive on the earth. That is what makes you a Christian. What makes you a Christian is this fruit. He said, by their fruit we shall know them. And that should be what's more important. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for being able to listen today and joining. I'm hoping this will be a very interesting one. See you next week, and have a wonderful weekend, and bye-bye.